Building connection requires vulnerability, but vulnerability requires safety. And this is kind of the conundrum that we run into where we're trying to create new relationships.
You're listening to the Science and Spirit of Happy podcast, where we discuss the rational, strategic, and psychological methods, but also the deep reasons and spiritual philosophy behind being happy down to the soul. Happiness isn't just hedonism. It's not even solely personal. Getting happy dramatically increases your effectiveness in every area, from business and finance to relationships. When we align with our own personal version of ideal, we end up not just happier, but healthier, more whole, more successful and richer, but even loving and loved. It's my opinion that getting happy for yourself is the absolute best way to serve the people in your life. I'm your host, Laura Lee Bowers, master healer and academic researcher, and this is another episode diving into
The science and spirit of happy.
the logical path to soul.
Good day, y'all. Welcome back. Okay, we're talking about building relationships today in the stage where you're like meeting new people, whether this is like friends or potential lovers. Really, you need the same skill set. In the beginning, it's the same for everybody. Just building relationships with people is just building relationships with people. So in the beginning, the irony around relationship building is that it requires vulnerability, but vulnerability requires safety, right? So when we're meeting new people, this balancing act of being vulnerable while keeping ourselves safe is, it's pretty much the nut we need to crack. So that's basically what we're going to be talking about today, is how to keep yourself safe in vulnerability and how to be vulnerable when you don't necessarily feel, the safest. Like when you don't really know how someone's going to respond. And that's kind of the first rule that we're gonna start applying to this meeting people and building relationships scenario, is that we want to ideally be okay regardless of how someone responds to us. When we don't know how someone is going to respond, we need to create our own security by being okay with however they're going to respond, which involves positioning ourselves in a way that we're only taking the steps forward, even if they're in vulnerability, when we're not sure how the other person is going to react, and we hope they're going to react one way. We'd be disappointed if they react another way, but we're going to be okay regardless of what they choose. So I mentioned in the first episode that we have these kind of dating schemas that we're taught, sort of strategies to date. And I mentioned like not texting back or having, a set amount of time or a set amount of days or whatever that you wait to respond to someone or to write them a message after a date or, waiting a certain amount of time to sleep together, that sort of thing, these sort of rules. And I kind of flippantly mentioned that those rules are meant to emulate someone who has a full life. And what I meant by that was that when you're being yourself and you're living your purpose, which I think is really necessary to build the kind of community that you really want, I think that it's necessary that not only that you're living your purpose, but that like the people around you are also living theirs. And this inherently means that you have stuff going on. And the reason I say that you need to be living your purpose and they need to be living their purpose, whatever, it's just, we're talking about authenticity, right? We're talking about genuineness. So when people are really tapped into who they are, right? They're tapped into what their values are, which is something that you can really depend on, because this stuff goes really, really deep to the very center of who we are, right? Right down to the soul, right down to our spirit. This is where, integrity actually comes from, and our values comes from our spirit. So someone who is genuine, they're tapped into something that is immutable. It's not going to change, right? So when we're talking about building lasting relationships, you really want to be striving towards meeting at a soul level. And if you're hoping to meet at a soul level with somebody, two things need to be there in that relationship. Like, you need to be in touch with your soul, and they need to be in touch with theirs, right? Because you need to be living in alignment with it. And if you're living in alignment with your soul, you're going to be living your purpose. So it's just part and parcel, right? It isn't necessarily the key thing that this person must be living their purpose and therefore, they can afford to go on vacations with me. No, it's like, it's actually a connection thing. It goes way deeper than this. The purpose living is just a sign that, this person is the kind of person that can make that kind of connection with you. So living your purpose means that you have stuff going on. I'm getting texts right in the middle of my podcast here. Why is that not on silent? See, I got stuff going on, right? Living aligned with your purpose, with your soul, with your heart, means that you got stuff going on. You've got other relationships. You have, maybe hobbies that you are dedicated to. You've got, a vocation, whether that's, even just being at home with your kids or being, a house manager, that kind of thing. But you have things that the responsibilities and commitments to other people or other things that you're doing, that means that you're not available all the time, right? So when we're learning these like dating schemas and like not to be too available, not to like seem too desperate to people, to like be friends or be in a relationship with them, this is kind of what we're being taught to emulate, is someone who is living with their purpose and has a full life. It isn't just about like creating distance, right? I talked about space and the kind of space that we need in relationships in episode 4, but living your purpose sometimes means that you're going to create separation. So basically, kind of summing up episode 4 I've definitely go and listen to it. There's a lot in there, but kind of summing up the base premise of what I was talking about, space in relationships and what kind of space that we need, is the space of being ourselves, right? And it's not the space that causes love. When we notice that space actually causes people to want to be in a relationship with us, that the space actually causes a desire for connection. It's not the space, it's not the distance, okay? It's the admiration for that person being their incredible self. So it's not, oh, she didn't text me back for 3 hours. That made me want her more. It's that this woman is dedicated to her yoga practice and wasn't going to let, some person she just met get in the way of that. And that shows me that her priorities are pretty set for her. And this is somebody that I could likely depend on. This is somebody who is likely interesting. There's just all of these other things that come along with the kind of dedication to and knowing yourself that we mistake, and that dating advisors are telling us has to do with disconnection, right? It has to do with creating that distance. when it's really not the distance at all. We talked about absence making the heart grow fonder in the first episode, but it isn't really the absence at all. It's the shape of the person who is no longer there. It's realizing the shape of the person that is no longer with you, and the emptiness of that shape, and how much you appreciate the shape of them, right? It has nothing to do with the absence. It has nothing to do with the distance. So when we're talking about keeping ourselves safe while we're building relationships, we're talking about going slow by stages, and we're talking about letting people be themselves. Okay? So keeping ourselves safe lets that happen. So space is often part of growing into a relationship, because you have priorities, because you have other values, because you have other things going on. Space is often part of that. And because you know yourself, because you have values, because you have a full life, it's not as easy for someone to swoop into your life and become top priority, right? You have to build that. So this is the kind of healthy space that we're trying to emulate when we're talking about like dating and making friends schemas. But like I said, that isn't really, you don't want to focus on that, because that's like a manipulation, right? So that is like essentially trying to create the vibe of being somebody that you're not. So that's not the focus, right? What you really want to focus on is being the person that you want to be. What you really want to focus on is getting in line with your values. What you really want to focus on, if you are just like, over the top, desperate for this new person that you met to be your friend or be your lover, is to kind of dive into that and realize that like something is like, either maybe this is kismet, some kind of crazy cosmic thing, or, it's maybe just like a you thing that like you need to deal with yourself, and not like put that on somebody else in a matter of respect, because that's something that you value, respecting people and not expecting things that are beyond the stage that your relationship is in now. So you could meet someone and hope that you're going to marry them one day, and still have the respect to not like ask them to marry you, right? To like let that relationship unfold. Because without the pull to come back together, right? Without the things that are within the relationship, like the wonderful things that you bring to it, the wonderful person you are, that shape of you, right? That somebody feels when they're around you, without the pull to wanting that back, the space does nothing. Because you ever have space from somebody that you really wanted space from? Like, did you miss them? No, you're like, oh, thank goodness. The person's really annoying. I'm really glad to have this space from them. So, like games, it just doesn't work, right? We don't want to play games. We don't have time to play games. There's this Taylor Swift lyric that is really simplistic, but I just thought it was a really, really, really funny, cool line. She said, like, if you play stupid games, you get stupid prizes. And it's like, it's true, right? If you want to play games, then you're going to end up in a relationship with someone you probably don't want to be in a relationship with. I took this course on dating because I was like, I've explained, I was terrible at it, like absolutely just not, couldn't do it. And I took this relationship course on dating, and this woman was explaining how men are elastic bands and women are like waves, and how we need to use this understanding to manipulate each other's emotions. And I just think that is not sustainable. So I think really what is sustainable is focusing on that yoga class, is focusing on doing the things for you that you want to do, and becoming the person that the kind of people that you want to be around, and not actually focusing on creating the relationships, but focus on creating the person that you want to be. And then when the relationships naturally kind of come around, you know, the opportunity to build relationships, you can just be yourself and naturally sort of grow into them. So, you know, being honest and respectful and taking it really, really slow, you know, stage by stage. And for some people, this could be different speeds for different people. You know, myself and my husband, we were friends for months and months and months. And then once we finally got together, we hadn't been intimate. We were on different continents at that point, and he decided to come and move in with me. So we went from, you know, friends to like almost, you know, like common law overnight, essentially. Not really overnight, but pretty much. So like some people's speeds will be completely different. And like I said, we were friends for months and months and months. You know, he actually didn't want to date. He took all of this time to get to know me. And then he was like, okay, I'm not sure. Like, I love you and I want to be with you. And that's how we ended up together. And we're still together, celebrating 6 years and 2 years of marriage in a couple months. So, the number one thing that you really want to keep in mind when you're dating is that people aren't dating to be in a relationship. Okay. So people are dating to like get to know each other. And of course, everybody wants a relationship. Most people, like, not everybody wants to actually go through the legal proceedings of getting married, but everybody wants to be in a marriage type relationship, a long-term partnership. It's just kind of natural, but they aren't dating you to marry you, or they aren't dating you to get into a committed relationship with you, right? So those people who are dating to like get into a relationship with you, that they want to actually like kind of manipulate this situation to make it go somewhere for some reason that doesn't have to do with connection, right? So when people are dating, they're dating to get to know people, right? They're dating to meet new people. They're dating because they're attracted to you. They're dating just to see where things go. And you definitely need to be dependable, right? You don't want to be like flaky, because you can't create relationships on that. And ignoring people's texts and stuff like that, that's not being dependable. But letting them be themselves, it definitely is. And people who aren't into secure attachment, they won't be into you being dependable. They won't be into you just like allowing them to like be themselves, but then also holding them accountable to their actions towards you, etc. So yeah, like you're gonna lose some by just showing up and responding to texts when you can and actually being available, like emotionally available and stuff. Like, yeah, some people are going to run with their tails between their legs, and like, this is good. You should be like, hooray, when you're doing, because you're thinning out, you know, the flock of people who are not, this is not an appropriate connection, right? But, you know, dating is not the time to hold people to relationship standards. So I remember when I was getting together with my husband, he actually like ghosted me and flaked on me, and we were supposed to like go hiking together, and he ended up like canceling on me last minute, and like he actually sought me out on social media to like send me messages, and then I wrote back to him and he like didn't write back to me. And he was just like this total weirdo. And I was just like, well, whatever, you know, like as long as he is, you know, takes care of my feelings, you know, like as long as there's some bare minimums, what I consider bare minimums, that he is like being like some level of dependable, like he's being accountable to me, then he can just be himself. Like he wants to be a weirdo and not text me back, like fine. Like if he wants to, you know, be a weirdo and like not, you know, go for a hike with me, like fine. And then he you know, he picks me up for work and drives me to work, and that's fine too, you know, as long as, for me, as long as he's like saying he's sorry and canceling before, the thing was supposed to happen, or, like he's not mistreating me, these kinds of things when I was getting to know him. And letting him be himself was the path to us like blossoming into a relationship. So you have to know your limits, right? Like if you're okay with someone, not responding to you when you've just made a comment, but you're not okay with someone not responding to you when you've asked them a question, then these are limits that you need to know and communicate with people. Like, what is a deal breaker to you? If someone doesn't text you back and then texts you in 3 days and you just met, and like, is that really a deal breaker for you? Like, do they need to text you every single day as soon as you meet? I mean, maybe that is something that you need, and maybe that's something that you need to communicate up front. I don't know, but you need to know for yourself what is a deal breaker. If you're looking for a super dependable partner, if you want a partner who texts you every day, if you want a partner who checks in with you every day, if you want a partner who responds to you as soon as they can, etc., you can't hold someone new to that standard, right? And you can't expect that someone new can't be that person eventually. It's a completely different relationship, right? Like when you're meeting somebody, it's kind of like no holds barred, right? It's like we're talking about like developmentally appropriate expectations, right? So how to stay safe in dating. The biggest thing for me, the biggest way that I stayed safe dating, which allowed me to just be okay with, whomever doing pretty much whatever within reason, was no sex. So I didn't think that this was necessary anyways. It's kind of funny. I just like decided one day, I'm like, I'm not gonna like go all the way with people. I'm just gonna like make out and like see how it goes. And like I turned into this like all of my friends were just so envious, and they were like, how many guys you're talking to, Lauralee? We'd be sitting on the beach and they'd just be laughing at like my love life, because like, I was chatting to guys here and there, I was having lots and lots and lots of fun. Pretty much, honestly, you don't need to be doing physical stuff. It ended up like I wasn't doing physical stuff with the, majority of guys that I was talking to. I was just like chatting with guys, and I built this confidence in myself that I had never had before. And I realized that back in the day, like it's been such a short amount of time in history that we've been like going all the way with people that we aren't in like committed relationships with. It's only been like 50 years since we've been doing this like openly outside of like marriage, So I realized the freedom in this. I've realized, how much safer I was just making that decision that to actually have sex with someone was like a really big decision. And it was like me deciding to like go somewhere else with our relationship that had to take like real cognizant decision making. You can do everything else. Like you can have a great time, I mean, you can do whatever you want. And this is the thing too, like you don't feel beholden to anybody, and you don't feel like anybody's beholden to you. Like somebody drops off, whatever, it doesn't really matter. And this is really natural. Right? This is really, really natural to be dating people, to be getting to know, maybe even multiple people, and getting vulnerable by degrees and taking our time. Like this was like just such a pivotal thing for me to stay safe while I got to know people, that it allowed me to really get comfortable and confident with men, with dating, that I didn't have before. And it allowed me to give my partner the space that he needed to be a weirdo and to get over it, and to learn to trust me, and then to open up to me and tell me, he loved me and fly across the world to be with me, etc. All of this stuff came from safety the safety to be vulnerable and to grow, not just together in a relationship with people, but grow as a person. And whatever way that you can make this happen, that you can keep your safety so that you can be vulnerable, whatever way this works for you, that is the key to creating wonderful, beautiful relationships, but also to just enjoying the process too. So I hope that helps for y'all. Stay tuned for next week. We're talking about fighting, right? So we're going to get into the juicy stuff of when relationships potentially turn bad. So it's been really fun talking with y'all, and I will see you next time. Good day, y'all.